What is up, homies? Welcome back to another trailer reaction from Heroes Reforged. We are reacting to the brand new trailer for Kraven the Hunter. I think I was maybe talking to Augustine about this. This movie has gone through a series of reshoots. Some of it, from what we've read, has been to improve the story, improve some of the character arcs. At the end of the day, we've seen Morbius, we've seen Madam Web. I don't want to be a pessimist, but I kind of know what to expect from this project, unfortunately.
I am happy that Adam, you and I, and Augustine, we generally have a reputation on YouTube where it's like, hey, you guys aren't negative for negative's sake. You guys are pretty positive and optimistic. And I will say this again because I say it with every movie. We say it with every movie. We do not want this to be bad. We want every movie to be good. Meaning I'm totally open to being surprised and I would be delighted, all right? I own the first Venom movie on 3D Blu-ray that I imported from Germany. That's how much I enjoyed that movie that I did that. But it has always been a difficult sell for me as somebody who grew up reading Spider-Man comic books and still reads them and is really familiar with these characters, to have this studio really push the solo villain movie thing. It's just more characters that I'm like, well, I'm never going to get to see them fight or interact with Peter Parker Spider-Man or any Spider-Man. And Kraven is the one I think that hurts the most. Out of all of the solo villains, maybe even more than Venom, Kraven hurts because I really love the Kraven Spider-Man dynamic, and Kraven's Last Hunt is maybe the best Spider-Man comic book story, one of the best, if not the best. And it's a bummer that because he is such a good villain in that story, that Sony was like, great, we'll give him his own movie. And I'm like, oh, we might be missing the point of that character here. What a bummer. I would have loved to have seen Kraven in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, the people in Wakanda, they have the heart-shaped herb and it gives them the enhanced senses. And Kraven's origin in the comic books is very similar to that. And I'm like, that would have just been an easy one-to-one MCU connection. You know, this guy who steals the herb or something. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, I don't want to try to judge the movie for what it's not. I want to judge the movie for what it is. But does this studio and does this direction of these characters have the best track record? No. So that's a bummer. So I don't know. Let's watch this trailer and see what happens.
Speaking of Venom, we're probably going to be watching the first two Venoms in anticipation for the final film.
We will.
Coming out later this year. So I'm looking forward to revisiting those. I have mixed feelings on the second one, but generally speaking, like the first one, I'm pretty okay with it. We still haven't done a watch along on the channel for Madam Web either, so maybe we need to do that at some point. But check out our Patreon. Check out all the stuff that we're watching. There's plenty of shows and movies. Also, make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Let us know your favorite moment from this trailer if you find one. Godspeed, God bless. And here we go.
My son, we are hunters, the greatest the world has ever known.
Охотник до сказки.
В каждой сказке есть правда.
Oh yeah, and this is rated R, just FYI.
After that.
I heard the noise of thunder.
Are you like your
Trying to get those Logan vibes.
Yeah.
a killer?
And I heard a voice. And behold, hell followed with him. There's a man going round taking
This December.
Son,
and he decides who to free and who to blame.
we are an animal stronger than you can imagine.
The hairs on your arm will stand up.
Tell me about this hunter.
Some are born and some are dying.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
When the man
My
That is
dogs.
one annoying elevator. My dogs are hungry.
whoever is unjust,
You think you're some kind of honor, some kind of code.
they'll be unjust too.
Jesus.
Yay.
Another man
Whoever is righteous,
hunting for a trophy.
let him be righteous.
3 darts is too much.
When the man comes around. When the man comes around.
Embrace who you really are, son.
What? The Rhino is the
Rhino.
villain? What?
Yeah.
Become a legend.
When the man comes around.
Did we see that in the other trailers? I honestly do not
No.
remember.
No, we did not see the Rhino in other trailers.
Interesting.
I will give them this. At least when this trailer was going, I was like, okay, we're gonna have another bigger, badder bad guy who also
Yeah.
gets the powers or abilities of the. And it's like we saw that in Venom 2, we saw that
Yep.
in Morbius. There's just like if Morbius is like the living vampire, and then there's like the other guy who also gets the same vampire powers, and they're gonna fight. And I thought this was gonna be another character that Kraven was gonna have to take on so that we could root for Kraven. While they're still sort of both being bad, but this one was badder. At least this one's like, well, we're going to have him turn into a physical threat for this character to overcome, but it'll be a character from the comic books, and comic
Right.
nerds will geek out about it. It's the Rhino.
Right.
And the only thing I don't like about that, I mean, whatever, I guess I'm fine with it, is it's just like I keep holding out hope that these Sony Villainverse movies will reveal that it's like, oh, we've been in the Andrew Garfield universe the whole time. Here's Andrew Garfield. Like, here's that Spider-Man, you know? And it seems like even when they have opportunities to do it, I don't know if it's a legal thing because it's all Sony. Even when they have opportunities to do it, they like go out of their way to be like, nope, it's not that universe. We don't have a Spider-Man in this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You guys could have had your own
Where are you
Spider-Man
then?
or brought back a fan favorite Spider-Man. Like in the Morbius trailers that had pictures of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and then those got deleted from the film. Like they're not in the film. Like pictures of that on a billboard or graffiti or wall or whatever. And people are like, okay, are we in that? You know, and then there would be like iconography from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man as well. And it's this very confused thing. And the thing that bums me out about this, it's like, man, it would have been wild to see Paul Giamatti in this movie as a villain that this Kraven has to go up against. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like, they're not doing that. My thoughts on this are, this is a very sort of slick trailer. And I think that it might get people who don't know about this character or know that he's a Spider-Man villain to go like, this looks kind of cool. It feels like John Wick. This feels like a movie that I would go see with my dad. And I don't mean that as an insult. I love a good dad movie. We go see this kind of stuff all the time. We've seen all the John Wicks. We'll go, we've seen the Equalizers. Those are dad movies that I will take my dad to see. And it feels like this is trying to kind of tap into that. And it's got the trailer from the end credits of Logan song, or it like to try to have this like cool rated R edgy sort of feel. But so it was a well put together trailer. I'm still the hard sell of like, I don't know if I buy this. The other thing I was noticing too during the trailer, this is my last sort of thought. I think it's goofy and awesome that Kraven the Hunter in the comic books literally hunts animals. He's like a big game hunter, and it's very dorky. And he's this like decades before Steve Irwin. He's like this insane sort of animal poacher, basically, who becomes famous for doing this. For like, he took down a lion with his bare hands, and he took down a rhinoceros with his bare hands. And those kind of images were kind of cool and exciting in 1963 or 64 or whatever, to see like a guy in this funny leotard, lion leopard print thing, like wrestling a gorilla or wrestling a rhinoceros. And then he comes to New York City and he's like, but I will have to hunt Spider-Man because he is the most dangerous prey of all, or whatever silly, goofy idea. And then in this film, this story has reduced him to, he's a mercenary. He's like a contract killer. He's like he gets hired to hunt a guy. And even if he's in a prison, he'll break into the prison, kill the guy, and break out. He's that good. And then the woman character goes like, who's next? And I'm like, that's cool, but I don't care about badass guys anymore. I would rather have seen, do you know what I mean? A goofy dude like, well, damn, dude, he fought a gorilla. All right. That's different, at least. I don't know. So that's my last sort of thought on this trailer. What did you think, Adam? What was your takeaway?
I mean, I agree with a lot of things that you're saying. This does just look like it's just trying to check the boxes of badass action movie, almost as if they're trying to make their own Rambo or their own John Wick, like you were saying. It's more Sony movies in a forest, Sony Marvel movies in a forest. Like, we get that. I feel like we got that with Morbius. We definitely got it with Madam Web, and we're getting that here again. So I think I've kind of reached the point where, as much as like you're saying, I would love it if they would at least have the balls to say, this is the Andrew Garfield universe. This is the Tobey universe. Even if they never used them, to just say like, we are connected to this. We don't have any plans to make an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie at this point because our main guy right now is Tom Holland. But at least we're willing to say like, this is a continuation of that universe. And if someday we reach a point where we would like to make an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie, and he's into the idea of making a Spider-Man movie, we will commit to doing it regardless of the fact that we're sharing Tom Holland's Spider-Man right now with Marvel Studios. They already opened up that doorway anyway with Spider-Man No Way Home, so there's no reason to not commit to making another or whatever. For me, I think I'm kind of just coming at this point after Morbius, Madam Web, and Venom and all that stuff. I'm just looking at it as like, this is just Sony making an action film with a marquee Spider-Man character, and it's going to have probably absolutely no implications or bearing on the Spider-Man universe whatsoever. Like, I don't think there's going to be a post-credit scene where Spider-Man shows up. I don't think it's going to try to interconnect anything.
No.
Especially not the way Morbius did, because I think Morbius created more confusion than anything. So I think I'm kind of at that point with all of these Sony Marvel films, is at least hoping that the story, the characters are interesting and good enough that I can walk out of it going like, well, at least I had an entertaining time at the movies. With Morbius, I didn't really have an entertaining time at the movies because I didn't think the movie was good. And the same thing goes for Madam Web. I didn't think that the movie was good on its own, regardless of its connections to Spider-Man or not. So if Kraven is the one film that after multiple reshoots and restructures and story changes and character changes, where I'm like, cool, I like the story, I'm intrigued by the characters, I like the performances, the action's cool, then at least I can reward it on those merits, rather than saying like, well, it's a shitty movie and it has nothing to do with Spider-Man, therefore it's a complete dud. I would at least like to give it some credit. And it's also just a bummer to see Aaron Taylor-Johnson go from playing Quicksilver in the MCU, who was a really good character and he had such a great arc and he really played the part so well, and his character serves a really nice purpose in the story, to then just kind of like, yeah, you're Kraven the Hunter. There's no really we don't really have any prospects for you in the future, but you want to do this one movie, and if people like it, maybe we'll do a sequel. It's a bummer because I just think he's such a good actor who's capable of so much, and I think he deserves more just on an acting level. I really hope that this movie just kind of sells me on its own story and premise. It's just not as painful to watch as Madam Web and Morbius were. Like, the fact that Madam Web for me was worse than Morbius says a lot. Like, I did not like Morbius. I was a painful watch.
Real disappointing. And it felt like both Morbius and Madam Web were the sort of like, we keep testing it, we keep audience testing it, and we keep changing it to kind of, and you hear the past couple of weeks, we've been hearing stories about like James Gunn is finishing a Superman movie, and he's just like, I made sure that my script was solid. Yeah. And people are ragging on Marvel and Marvel Studios and basically Hollywood that makes these kinds of movies for not doing that when it seems like such a no-brainer. Look, we just saw Deadpool and Wolverine, which celebrated a ton of Fox X-Men movies and Fox superhero movies and Lionsgate and all these other studios superhero movies of the past 20 years that were not always particularly great, but they led into that movie and gave us an emotional connection. And you start feeling nostalgic, and you started feeling the emotion of saying goodbye to that stuff, or like wrapping things out, even after the Logan finality. And I still hold out hope that like, if Sony could find a writer or even a producer who's like, this is what the plan is going to be. Tom Hardy has said that the third Venom is going to be the last Venom film. Even if his Venom never interacts with a Spider-Man, fine, but I still think that there's a potential to like loop in all these villain movies together and the weird Michael Keaton as the Vulture from the MCU plot thread, and do some large movie with these very talented actors and have some kind of a send-off for that as well. Like, I still think Sony could do that. I still think Aaron Taylor-Johnson's a good actor, even though I haven't seen this film yet. I know Jared Leto's a good actor. Jared Leto is a good actor. He's not my favorite, and I didn't like the Morbius movie. And I know Tom Hardy as Venom, as Eddie Brock, is really fun and interesting to watch. And even if they wanted to loop in Dakota Johnson's Madam Web, I just know there's a screenwriter out there who like could do it.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
Could the studio, right? Would Sony as the studio be willing to like support all of that? And if they had the ambition to go, and guys, and after all of this, we're bringing back Andrew Garfield for one more Spider-Man. He's going to be the main character, and he's going to deal with all of these characters. Are going to sort of say goodbye to the Sonyverse and conclude his trilogy, and say goodbye to this kind of odd and weird, disconnected Spider-Man multiverse live action villain thing. And then Sony could then refocus and continue their deal with Marvel Studios. and then maybe focus on animation or do the Spider-Verse films. And they were going to do a Silk TV show with Amazon, but then they canceled it, a live action show. And I think like those kinds of projects are interesting, and those kinds of things are, they're doing this Nicolas Cage Spider Noir thing. So it's like, I'm open to that. And if the path for the sort of future success of this whole brand is through the animated Spider-Verse films, do that. Focus on that, But I don't know. I still hold out hope that like somebody could make all of this work. It just hasn't worked for me thus far.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the biggest kind of annoyance is like, well, you guys now looped in Michael Keaton Vulture, which annoys the hell out of me because I'm like, put him back in the MCU. The end of Venom 2 had Eddie Brock pop into the MCU. Did Marvel Studios approve of that? Was that a Sony like, we're going to sneak in? And then the next Spider-Man movie, Marvel Studios was like, nah, they're never going to meet. We're just going to, we're going to put you back. So it's like, do I have to wait for another Marvel Studios film, maybe Secret Wars or something, to like scoop Michael Keaton back and just put him where he belongs? Like,
right.
I don't know. There's a lot to think about here, but there's also not a lot going on with these movies. Maybe the comment that we see a lot, Adam, is actually going to ring true today. Hector, you're overthinking this. Maybe I am, Adam. Maybe I am. But I can't help it, dude. It's Sergei Kravenov. He's one of my favorite characters in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
And,
well, I understand the frustration, though, because I think a lot of people who wait for these characters to come to the big screen, I feel like that. I feel that way about a lot of DC characters, too. You wait so long for these characters to come to screen, and in your brain, as someone who has grown up reading comic books and loves the characters, you always see so many of these characters with other characters that are having ongoing projects happening, whether it's with
Black
Sony
Adam
and Marvel.
And Shazam
exactly,
never met. Black Adam and Shazam never met. How did somebody let that happen?
Who made that happen? How do you not put Black Adam and Shazam in the same movie? I don't understand.
I don't know.
It's those sorts of things. And I think whether it's producers or actors, whoever, are trying to say like, no, I'm going to come in and I got a really good idea, a real sizzle maker. It's like, cool. But you got to incorporate into the thing that makes it the thing. If you completely ignore that, or you have no plans to incorporate those things into the future, then like, that's great for you. But what is that for fans? It's kind of nothing. Right. You've checked the box, but you haven't really fulfilled the needs and wants of fans. Now, of course, not every fan cares to see Venom and Spider-Man together, but the majority of fandom, understanding how Spider-Man and Venom work together in comic book lore, it's almost impossible to not have the understanding of why comic book fans are upset when you don't specify, why isn't Eddie in the same universe as Peter? Why are they not interacting? Why is there a disconnect? Right. It's just it's
Detective Pikachu, the movie, when people are like, we just wanted a live action, full blown Pokemon movie. Like, we want that. We don't, we want the Ash Ketchum with his Pikachu going on the journey of the TV show or the video game. And instead they kind of pivoted and did this sort of like, cost saving thing. And I think that's fine. And I think it's smart to make really good, cost effective movies in certain genres. Horror has been doing that for decades. And they've been so profitable because you can do that with oftentimes like untested IP. And then it's like a new thing that comes out and people really enjoy it. And then they go see it and then it becomes a franchise. Great. But when you have an IP that already exists like this, and you continue to sort of pretzel bend yourself into justifications for why Eddie Brock will never meet a Peter Parker. It's like, well, I feel like you've already lost before you started. You've already lost before you started. If you want to respect these characters and you truly are like, look, I think some of these villains can stand on their own and have a really compelling movie. I think I agree with that. But it's just that the MCU is just too powerful. You got to be at the level
of the Dark Knight if you're going to do that.
For sure. Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. Or I don't know why Sony hasn't worked with Marvel Studios and been like, okay, we made Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. What if now we give Michael Keaton Vulture his own movie? It's still set in the MCU, but like, let's give him his own story because we made such a compelling villain. Or surprise, Mysterio isn't dead, and next summer Jake Gyllenhaal returns. I don't know. They've got such great setups there, but instead it's because they're trying to cut out the middleman and they don't want to share profits or whatever with Disney. I understand that. I get that. But it's just when the fans can see the Matrix code, it tends to put us in a bad mood as we're sitting down in the theater to watch this project. I want to not be able to see it. And Adam, we have now at this point talked way too long about Kraven the Hunter, so we got to wrap up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, lots of thoughts. We could talk about this topic endlessly, and we have on so many times, but Guys, let us know your
Wish them well.
thoughts.
I wish them well.
Let us know your thoughts on Kraven the Hunter and in the Sony Spider-Man universe in general. I know a lot of our fans have lots of thoughts about this, so let us know all your thoughts in the comments below about the universe, the movie, what you hope from the future. Check out everything else that we're watching on Patreon and on YouTube, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!